SA 800 Special Considerations Audit of Financial Statements prepared in accordance with Special Purpose Frameworks. Frameworks are of two types: Fair Presentation Framework, Compliance Framework. In Fair Presentation Framework, deviation is allowed. The wordings will be true and fair view. In case of Compliance Framework, deviation is not allowed. Wording will be are prepared. SA 800 Special Considerations Audit of Financial Statements prepared in accordance with Special Purpose Framework. SA 800 deals with special considerations applicable in respect of audit of financial statements prepared in accordance with the Special Purpose Framework. SA 800 addresses special considerations that are relevant to acceptance of the engagement, planning and performance of that engagement, and forming an opinion and reporting on the financial statements, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the entity's internal control. What is Special Purpose Framework? SA 800 defines Special Purpose Framework as a financial reporting framework designed to meet the financial information needs of the specific users. The financial reporting framework may be fair presentation framework or a compliance framework. The requirements of the applicable financial reporting framework determine the form and content of the financial statements and what constitute a complete set of financial statements. Important points is SA 800 does not cover the expression of opinion on effectiveness of the internal controls. Special purpose framework can be either fair presentation framework or compliance framework. Examples of special purpose framework are the cash receipts and disbursement basis of accounting for cash flow information that an entity may be requested to prepare for creditors, financial reporting provisions established by a regulator to meet the requirements of that regulator, the financial reporting provisions of a contract such as bond indenture, loan agreement, or a project grant are the examples of special purpose frameworks. A special purpose framework is to be distinguished from general purpose framework. A financial reporting framework designed to meet the common financial information needs of a wide range of users is known as general purpose framework, whereas a financial reporting framework designed to meet the financial information needs of the specific users is known as special purpose framework. Considerations when accepting such engagement. In the case of special purpose financial statements, the financial information needs of the intended users are a key factor in determining the acceptability of a financial reporting framework applied in the preparation of financial statements. The applicable financial reporting framework may encompass the financial reporting standards established by an organization that is authorized or recognized to promulgate standards for special purpose financial statements. In that case, those standards will be presumed acceptable for that purpose if the organization follows an established and transparent process involving deliberation and consideration of the views of relevant stakeholders. Some laws or regulations may prescribe the financial reporting framework to be used by the management in the preparation of special purpose financial statements for a certain type of entity. For example, a regulator may establish financial reporting provisions to meet the requirements of that regulator. In the absence of indications to the contrary, such a financial reporting framework is presumed acceptable for special purpose financial statements prepared by such an entity. Where the financial reporting standards referred to above are supplemented by legislative or regulatory requirements, SA 210 requires the auditor to determine whether any conflicts between the financial reporting standards and the additional requirements exist and prescribes actions to be taken by the auditor if such conflicts exist. The applicable financial reporting framework may encompass the financial reporting provisions of a contract or sources other than those described in the preceding paras. In that case, the acceptability of financial reporting framework in the circumstance of the entity of the engagement is determined by considering whether the framework exhibits attributes normally exhibited by acceptable financial reporting frameworks in accordance with the requirements of SA 210. In the case of special purpose framework, the relative importance to a particular engagement of each of the attributes normally exhibited by acceptable financial reporting frameworks is a matter of professional judgment. For example, for purpose of establishing the value of net assets of an entity at the date of its sale, the vendor and the purchaser may have agreed that very prudent estimates of allowances for uncollectible account receivables are appropriate for their needs, even though such financial information is not neutral when compared with the financial information prepared in accordance with the general purpose framework. Considerations when planning and performing such audit. SA 200 requires the auditor to comply with relevant ethical requirements, including those pertaining to independence, relating to financial statement audit engagements, and all essays relevant to the auditor. It also requires the auditor to comply with each requirement of an essay unless, in the circumstance of the audit, the entire essay is not relevant or the requirement is not relevant because it is conditional and the condition does not exist. In exceptional circumstances, the auditor may judge it necessary to depart from the relevant requirements in an essay by performing alternative audit procedures to achieve the aim of that requirement. Application of some of the requirements of essays in an audit of special purpose financial statements may require special consideration by the auditor. For example, in Essay 320, judgments about matters that are material to users of financial statements are based on a consideration of the common financial information needs of a users of it as a group. Common financial information needs of users as a group. In the case of an audit of special purpose financial statements, however, those judgments are based on a consideration of financial information needs of the intended users. In the case of special purpose financial statements, such as those prepared in accordance with the requirements of a contract, management may agree with the intended users on a threshold below which misstatements identified during the audit will not be corrected or otherwise adjusted. The existence of such a threshold does not relieve the auditor from the requirement to determine materiality in accordance with SA 320 for purposes of planning and performing the audit of the special purpose financial statements. SA 260 revised requires the auditor to determine the appropriate persons within the entity's governance structure with whom to communicate. SA 260 revised notes that in some cases, all of those charged with governance are involved in the management in managing the entity, and the application of the communication requirements is modified to recognize this position. When a complete set of general purpose financial statements is also prepared by the entity, those persons responsible for the oversight of the preparation of the special purpose financial statements may not be the same as the as those charged with the governance responsible for the oversight of the generally general purpose financial statements. Preparation of those general purpose financial statements. Forming an opinion and reporting considerations in such an audit. When forming an opinion and reporting on special purpose financial statements, the auditor shall apply the requirements in revised SA 700. The summary is auditor shall determine which essays are relevant and which are not relevant for special purpose engagement. SA 315 requires the auditor to obtain the understanding of the entity's selection and application of accounting policies. Auditor to keep in mind the intended users and management's responsibility regarding the same. Next, during the audit of special purpose financial statements, applicability of certain essays may change or require special considerations. For example, as per SA 320, materiality should be determined on the basis of needs of the intended users rather than of general users. If the company and intended users has determined a threshold below which they will not make adjustment, auditors should still consider threshold as per SA 320. Sometimes those charged with governance may not be responsible for oversight of financial statements prepared as per special purpose framework. Description of the applicable financial reporting framework. A revised SS 700 requires the auditor to evaluate whether the financial statements adequately refer to or describe the applicable financial reporting framework. In the case of financial statements prepared in accordance with the provisions of a contract, the auditor shall evaluate whether the financial statements adequately describe any significant interpretations of the contract on which the financial statements are based. Revised SS 700 deals with the form and content of the auditor's report. In the case of an auditor's report on special purpose financial statements, the auditor's report shall also describe the purpose for which the financial statements are prepared, and if necessary, the intended users are referred to a note in the special purpose financial statements contain information that contain that information. And if management has a choice of financial reporting frameworks in the preparation of such financial statements, the explanation of the management's responsibility for the financial statements should also make references to its responsibility for determining that the applicable financial reporting framework is acceptable in the circumstances. Next, alerting readers that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with special purpose framework. The special purpose financial statements may be used for purposes other than those for which they were intended. For example, a regulator may require certain entities to place the special purpose financial statements on public record. To avoid misunderstandings, the auditor alert users of the auditor's report that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with a special purpose framework and therefore may not be suitable for another purpose. Important point is auditor to include emphasis of matter paragraph to alert the users that financial statements are prepared in accordance with special purpose framework and also specify restriction and distribution and use of report by other parties. A restriction on distribution or use. In addition to the alert required as discussed above, the auditor may consider it appropriate to indicate that the auditor's report is intended solely for the specific users. Depending on the law or regulation applicable, this may be achieved by restricting the distribution or use of the auditor's report. In these circumstances, the paragraph alerting the readers may be expanded to include these other matters and the heading modified accordingly. Either he can give emphasis of matter paragraph or basis of accounting and restriction on distribution of use. Restriction on distribution of use.